Welcome to Commander Central. Today we are going to be talking about EDH Etiquette. Rule number 1, put on pants.
Whoa. What if it's at my place? Like, I'm hosting it.
I was talking about literally right now, Max. Please put on pants.
Okay, I'll be back later, guys.
I'm Dana.
I'm Max.
And I'm Chris.
Welcome back, guys. How you guys doing tonight?
Pretty good. It's been a good week.
I'm never playing Commander again.
So you hadn't really played on Commander Night very often, and this week you're like, I'm going to play some games.
Yeah, I'm actually free from competitive play, and I'm like, sure, let's play some Commander.
And you had just bad games all night.
It's an understatement.
We will. So give me one bad example of a game that went poorly for you.
I really want to call out Dr. Mike like really hard right now.
It's okay. You can do it.
Helm of the Host and Aurelia. Such an evil combo.
I think we're to blame for that, though.
I believe he lost to someone else's Aurelia Helm of the Host combo in another game after that.
Oh.
So karma, he already got karma back.
Just desserts. It's so sweet.
I had a couple Aurelia games that night I wound up playing. And we liked his Aurelia deck. And actually, I didn't even play his deck. It was another player's Aurelia deck. I like Aurelia. I like her as a commander. And the situation, I got hit early with Aurelia for, I can't remember if it was double strike or what it was. So I was at Aurelia damage, like 18 Aurelia damage. So I spent the rest of the game, because she has haste. And I'm just dead if she gets an Aurelia trigger off. So I have to sit there the entire game planning multiple ways to deal with Aurelia if she comes down and comes towards me. And I like a Core Haven out, but even then I was like, okay, but if she blows up my Core Haven, I'm going to die, so I need to have a backup plan. So it totally kept me from doing multiple things. Like there were times when I had Azor out, I was playing my Sphinx deck, and I'd swing at somebody, and I'm like, well, I could draw 7 cards off Azor right now, but if I don't draw a Swords to Plowshares or something and have... And she had Lightning Greaves there, too. I'm like, if I don't draw that and she plays Aurelia and gets Greaves on it, I'm dead and I can't Core Haven it. So I had to literally, like, it kept me from doing a ton of stuff for probably 7 or 8 turns. But it was fun because I had to, like, then adjust my entire play style around not getting killed by Aurelia. So it made for a really good experience. I like Aurelia as a commander across the table. It made for a fun game.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen a lot more of those in the shop, whether it's because of the guild kits or pat ourselves on the back, the Dr. Mike deck tech.
Sure, right, exactly.
You know, for a short time after we did Dr. Mike's show, I did contemplate turning Todrick into Aurelia because it's like, okay, this could be fun.
Yeah.
But now there's 2 or 3 Aurelia decks floating around the shop, so it's like, okay, I'm fine keeping the OG Todrick in the command of that deck.
So I had good games. Chris did not. But you played like you had like just chump decks too. You were playing with. You're playing with my decks.
You did.
I even played Gave the.
Oh, did you borrow?
Yes.
You borrowed a good
and
Gave
I lost
token
in
deck.
that one too because someone was playing.
Now,
like,
is it possible? Is it possible you're just bad?
No.
Okay.
It was literally like I got targeted out because I was the only one who was doing anything in the games to remove stuff.
That's like the worst experience. Too is one of those things when you sit down and you're playing well and you're trying to do all of the things and you can't, you're trying to gas. And sometimes you have to just go, I'm just not going to remove stuff and either we're going to lose the game and that's just what it is. But if no one else is drawing anything, I can't waste all my resources too.
Yep.
But that's also not fun. Like you want to be doing all the things. So I feel your pain. Did you see any cards that did a ton of work this week that you want to mention or call out specifically?
Mirage Mirror.
Mirage, God, that card's disgusting.
I've actually put it in like almost every one of my decks now.
Well, see, it's become one of those cards where I intentionally don't put it in all my decks because you can put it in every deck and you would never be wrong.
And I've flip-flopped. I used to be that way. Like,
sure.
That was my initial, after seeing it in a bunch of your decks, I'm like, I don't want to run that card because it can go in any deck. Like, it's the generic Cyclonic Rift almost. It's like Soul Ring. Like, it just goes
never
everywhere.
Bad.
But the fact that now that I'm looking at my decks, like, oh, this could be a second Archangel Athun because it's not legendary. Or in RNK, it can be a second. Phyrexian Arena is a bad example because you can't stack the triggers correctly. But you know what I mean? There's enough stuff in all of my decks where I can, for one turn, get so much value for that mana to make it worthwhile.
Well, and if you like making splashy, like show-off plays or like something, if you like doing clever things, it allows you to like do clever things that someone doesn't see coming. It really lets you kind of show off, which is something I like to do as well. My MVP card I saw do a ton of work was Render Silent. I saw somebody in another game cast it and it saved themselves, and it saved me in a game where I was down to 4 life in my Asperia deck with a Megrim on the field, and the player to my right cast, I don't remember what spell it was, but it would have made me discard 2 cards to kill me. And he had 3 or 4 other cards in hand too, I'm guessing one of which at least was a discard spell. So I was able to Render Silent to stop the discard, to keep myself from dying, and then keep him from casting anything else, and he had to pass a turn to me. And at that point, then I played True Conviction and Metamai, and swung, gained back a bunch of life, picked up 2 extra turns, and then just closed out the game at that point.
Very nice.
But yeah, I mean, I've been really trying to move away from 3 mana counter spells for the most part. I don't even run, what was it, Dissipate? No.
Dissipate, no, Dissolve.
Dissolve. What was
That's the one that scries.
Disallow.
Disallow. There we go.
I was like, what are you guys talking about? Those are all garbage compared to
Disallow,
this one.
yeah. But even Disallow, like at 3 mana, I'm like, oh man, I don't even know if I want to run that.
It's the double blue over anything. Like, I don't mind a 3 mana counter spell. And I mean, Render Silent does have double pips.
Right. Well, in Render Silent, it's tough too because you're holding up double blue and a white, but being able to just stop someone from doing anything so many times saves you. So I'm a big fan of that spell, and it saved me that game, and I've seen it. It saved me multiple times. I never feel bad drawing that 3 mana spell.
No. You guys got to play EDH. I played EDH against the Bottle and NyQuil, and I slept all night.
Multiple people asked, like, where's Max at? He's never not here. I'm like, I think he's home sick.
I caught a head cold Saturday morning. I didn't have a voice all weekend, and I'm like, okay, I have my first of many holiday celebrations this coming weekend, or when you guys finally hear this past weekend.
You'll be done.
So I need to be healthy for that because I have 2 young nieces that I don't want to spread the sickness to, although why not?
Survival of the fittest.
Right?
Right. You're helping them if you think about it.
To be quite honest, my bet is on the younger one, so because she can kick my butt, and she's 3, so...
Young kids need to be exposed to sickness and illness, so then they build an immune system.
Just rub some dirt on it, cool Gatorade.
Pour some Gatorade on it. So plant's grave. A few quick housekeeping things to mention.
Oh, boy.
Last week we mentioned Glimpse of Nature in Modern, where it is, of course, a banned card. I believe, Chris, you meant to say Legacy. I'm guessing, because it's Legacy Cheerios is where it gets played for the most part. But so that was just a misspeak.
And I want to apologize. I did jokingly blame Chris for
87%
of that mistake.
We also
fine.
Somebody asked me about the Imperial Seal thing. I was talking about not wanting to see it in too many decks, just because then you get those decks that are super heavy tutor. I was thinking about it a little bit, and I had a conversation with JD of Commander on Twitter about it because he was asking me, and then I got thinking, I'm like, well, there's already a ton of tutors available, and if they're playing that deck that just wants 15 tutors, like nothing's stopping them already from running Besiege the Queen or Dark Petition or Diabolic Intent or Final Parting or whatever. I mean, is that going to change anything if they can get access to Imperial Seal?
Yes.
You think so?
Yes, because it's a cheaper, more efficient.
Right, but if they're already doing that, if they're running a bunch of them, I don't know. Like it's definitely going to be better, but like the deck's already doing that thing, and I'm probably not going to play against it as it is. If you're just playing 10 tutors and going for your combo piece, I'm already probably not interested. So Imperial Seal's not going to change that.
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying, Dana. I mean, if they're already running the 10 to 12 best tutors in mono black,
what's one more?
What's bumping the 12th one out for Imperial Seal?
I guess the question here is, so Vamp and Demonic are the best, I think, and assuming you have access to them, because that's $100 in cards roughly at this point. But like
by the time you hear this, it might be a little cheaper,
a little less because of Demonic. But so would you? No. Do you? If you have access to, probably not by much though, it might drop a little bit. But if you have access to Imperial Seal at a reasonable price, or at least say $30, say it drops to $30. Do you add that as your third tutor, or what's the point where you add that, or do you just not? Are you happy with having 2 based on your play style? I'm genuinely asking you to.
I would play it.
If it was
so right now you would run so right now in a black deck, Chris, you would run Vamp and Demonic. Would you run any other ones for the most part?
I do run usually one more.
Okay.
Whether it depends on what the play style of the deck is, but I usually always run 3 tutors.
Okay, so that would become your third tutor. Yep. So, but in that case, so it's just becoming a slightly better version of whatever your third tutor is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but that's not going to change that much in your case. Now, how about you?
So I only have one black deck, and that would be R&K, and the only 2 tutors I run in the entire deck is Demonic and Enlightened Tutor.
Okay.
Because I don't have a Vamp anymore. I got rid of that this past summer at Vegas. I know Chris is giving me a big loser sign. They gave me a heck of a deal. Couldn't say no. And I thought I actually had a second one, which I was mistaken. So I think if Imperial Seal was sub $50, I'd pick a couple up because it is a slightly worse Vamp.
Yeah.
And a third tutor in R&K actually might make that deck work better.
See, I don't know if I would add it to any of my decks necessarily. Where I don't, like, if I'm assuming I'm running the best couple tutors, do I add it? I don't know if I do. And if I just think if you're somebody who is going to like I'm not worried about you upgrading your third tutor. And if you're somebody who's just going 15 tutors deep, I'm probably not playing against you anyway. So I just don't know if that winds up being an issue. But anyway, I wanted to just touch on that briefly. We also had some questions about pricing, and I wanted to at least clarify because we mentioned cards having value as being good for the game, and some people were asking about that, and I wanted to just at least clarify what I meant, and if you guys agree or disagree, you can feel free to shout it out. What I meant here about that particularly is Wizards of the Coast only makes cards because they make money. And part of the reason they make money is because people buy packs.
Idiots like us.
Right. But also part of the reason people buy packs, it's a great game, obviously, but I'm much more comfortable buying a pack when I know there's a good chance of cracking a $10 card. At some point you lose, if the cards aren't worth money, people don't buy packs, and Wizards doesn't make money and doesn't print packs. And it's all kind of an ecosystem. Some cards need to be worth money.
Right. So this is going to go to a deleted scene from last week's show because I had to cut this little bit Chris and I discussed just because it didn't really fit in with the show and I couldn't move it to somewhere else. We spent some time cracking Khans of Tarkir's packs over.
That's the part you deleted?
I did.
You don't need to tell anybody about this. If you deleted it, that's fine.
We
just buy singles. Don't ever buy packs.
Buy singles.
Exactly. Buy singles. Don't crack a third of a box of Khans of Tarkir and hit every bulk rare ever.
Ugh. But yeah, but the reason you crack those packs is because there's cards worth a few things in there.
Yeah, if we would have hit one fetch, they would have paid for.
She would have paid for all 6 packs we each bought.
So yeah, no, you know what? It's not great that fetch lands cost $30. If you're trying to build a deck, that's unfortunate. But that also allows Wizards to make money and print cards. And is there a balance where maybe they can print a few more and do a few more reprints? Sure. But part of the thing that keeps this game as popular as it is because people are willing to spend money on cards because they believe they can at least recoup part of that money when all is said and done. And I think that's kind of what we meant. We said it's good for the game for cards to have value. I think it's also good for some cards if you're a Commander player, you want Tarmogoyf to be a $90 card, really, even if you don't play Modern, because number one, you have a chance of cracking in a pack to trade it for Modern, trade it for stuff that you do want. But number two, that's a card that other people will crack reprint packs for, and then maybe I didn't get my Goyf, but I got these 3 Commander cards, and I will get rid of them for the Goyf you got, or put them in the case at your store for cheaper. So, I mean, it's good for everyone. Again, don't get me wrong, you absolutely could. There's a perfect world where Wizards figures out how to make cards worth a little less, and there's a balance that you could say they haven't hit yet, and I don't disagree with that. But when we say it's good for cards to be worth something, just what the ecosystem of the game requires.
Otherwise, the game's just going to die.
Yeah.
We're going to have Chronicles over again.
Yes, right. Right. The game did almost die once when that was the case.
And Dana is referencing a comment we got on YouTube about last week's show on, reprints needed from UMA. And the comment was great. They said they liked the show, but they disagreed, saying that they think no card should be not available to any more than 10% of the player base. And I agree with Dana saying there are certain cards that could use reprints, but this game revolves around the secondary market no matter what.
Yeah,
Wizards does pay attention to it without saying they pay attention to it. We saw that with UMA. There's no reason Mana Crypt should be a $50 card with it only having X amount of printings.
Well, it's going to just turn into a downward spiral because Channel Fireball charges $70 for a GP.
If you're lucky.
Star City Games charges $50 to $60 for their
Right.
events. If your cards aren't worth money to go play with them, they're going to have to start charging less. Prize payout's going to be less. The player base isn't going to show up, and it's just going to completely downward spiral from there.
And if they can't guarantee statistically when they plan these events that they can get 300 to 500 people at all these, I'm going to use Star City Games because they are typically smaller events, the ones I've been to. If they can't guarantee 300 to 500 players at every event, that means they have to find a different place to have the event because those cost money. Renting the Milwaukee Conference Center for 2 days costs a lot of money.
I think they go anywhere from, like 50 to 70,000 for a weekend is what it costs them.
I would believe it.
Yep.
Yeah,
Between judges and all the product they have to have.
Vendors to come in to...
Yeah,
So-
absolutely. And
the person who wrote that comment on YouTube, I apologize.
I'm sympathetic completely. I get what they're saying. Absolutely.
I do too, and I didn't reply to you because I knew we were going to talk about it today. And I actually posed this question in our chat on Slack, and you can join that chat by going to patreon.com/CMDR Central and joining at the $2 or above level. And I posed that to all 70 people in our chat, said, what do you guys think about cards needing reprints? And this was about 3 hours after our show aired, and everybody kind of agreed that there are certain cards, like we'll use Marrow Gnawer, and I know I pronounced that wrong. I apologize.
Gnawer.
That one.
Gnar.
The cards that have only been printed once in a really bad set from Kamigawa or whatever should not have a $30 to $50
Correct.
price tag. But cards like Force of Will, Mana Drain, Cradle, we reserve this to non-RL cards. So Mana Drain, anything that could actually be reprinted, there are certain cards that deserve those higher price tags.
It's good to have some chase cards.
Because
But even Mana Drain's been reprinted, and it still spiked right back up to
right.
$50 plus dollars.
And the way we all kind of agreed was there is no way for Wizards to functionally reprint Mana Drain for standard to make it drop
Cheap
a Mana
enough.
Drain to a $10 to $20 card, because the closest we got was that counter spell from Ixalan that makes all the treasure tokens, and that's still a 5 mana counter spell.
Spell Swindle.
Yeah. That
Right,
is
yeah.
the closest we're ever going to get to Mana Drain, because it's giving you some sort of colorless mana in the form of treasure tokens. So there are cards that could be reprinted because they're not on the reserve list that do deserve that $50 to $100 price tag, whether it's Liliana of the Veils because they're played in every modern deck ever except for Burn.
They just got another reprint.
Right, and it's still going to be an $80 to $100 card. Goyf is always going to be $80 to $100.
Jason Mind Sculptor is always going to be 50
Right.
plus.
But the cards that have only been printed once in these not so well received sets don't need that high of a price tag, and I agree with you on that point. There are certain cards that don't need that high of a price point because they've only been printed once.
Okay, so if you want to participate in a conversation about pricing with us, you can join our Slack. And how would you do that, Max?
Patreon.com/CMDR Central, or just search CMDR Central. When we hit 100 Patreon supporters and we keep that for a month, we're going to be giving away to 2 lucky winners a sealed copy of From the Vault Angels and a sealed copy of From the Vault Transformed. Is that correct? Because that one's coming from you, Chris. He's nodding here, not saying anything.
I missed what you said to begin with, but yeah, I'm nodding.
You're not giving away your From the Vault lore.
No.
Okay, that's what I was going for.
Chris loves you, but not that much.
I knew it was one of the two, but I knew it was more transformed than lore.
Yeah, because I think I have like 3 transforms or something.
Yeah,
like
I
that.
have one left for me too.
I might have gone ham with other stores around town.
I think we both did. I think we both jumped in your car and just went.
Well, when I was told that they were still for sale at other stores and no one was buying them, I'm like, sure, I'll go buy some.
On top of that, $2 a month. That is less than your Starbucks that you're probably getting when you're listening to this in your car this morning.
With your
Gets you-
beetles, crushed up beetles and centipedes. And
right now, whatever's in your Starbucks coffee.
You get to join a great community where we all talk about, altars, our prices, our how to build a deck and stuff like that. And Chris doesn't participate in any of it.
I'm over here shaking my head like, yep, that's what we talk
I'm
about.
sure it happens in theory, but Chris doesn't know.
Along with that, you support us. You keep the lights on. You help us do stuff like make that awesome video content that's coming in the middle of 2019.
Yes, indeed.
Where apparently I have to wear pants.
And the very first episode, I'm going to wear my cheese head and my Packer jersey.
We expect no less from you, Chris. So speaking of contests, I think we have a couple contest winners to mention.
We do. If you are a Patreon subscriber and supporter of us, you get entered into a monthly drawing where we give a specific prize away to just those people. This month was an exclusive Die Hard dice set where you get 7 dice, different configurations.
It's pretty much a complete set for D&D.
Right, and they're all steel. So this month's winner of that is John Kozlowski.
Congratulations, John.
Congratulations, John. I will reach out to you on Slack on when this airs to get your address, and we'll ship those out to you.
Just make sure you never throw them on top of paper.
They're pretty. They're white with the gold border. I might keep them for myself and just buy you a different color.
Get the pumpkin spice ones.
No, I'm not a.
He's not basic.
Thank you.
How about Twitter?
Twitter, we're giving away the Ajwan Jaguar was the contest winner for last month. And the winner of that is The Comeback Kid.
Oh, nice.
And his Twitter handle is @Z4CK38. So I will be DMing you through the podcast account when you hear this.
Okay.
To get your address. And, of course, remember, in order to enter our contest, just retweet any of our tweets where we use hashtag. Oh, he doesn't remember it.
No, I do. I was going to try and say a different one that was on my mind. But so hashtag CMDR diehard is. I want to see is in capitals, too. Just like.
You're making this harder for me every week. I almost had to put the X in Christmas this week because I'm like, oh, we're hitting the character count here, but I made it work.
If you do hit the character count, feel free to
Xmas.
Yep, Xmas. Okay, that's fine. But it is hashtag CMDR diehard is a Christmas movie.
Where else can you find us online, Chris?
Find us online on the Twitter birds.
Tweet.
At CMDR Central, which my Twitter's just blew up one night. I almost threw my phone across the room.
Because
you participated in Twitter for once.
I wanted to test my OtterBox.
That also might have been me claiming I blamed you for 87% of the Glimpse from Nature problem.
Probably. You can find us on Facebook, searching us up, CMDR Central. Find us on YouTube, searching CMDR Central. As we talked about that, usually we don't respond too much to YouTube. It's mainly content stuff. You can find us online as well at cmdrcentral.com. Also, Danny, you keep putting this in the notes, and I finally wrote it down this time. But you can find us on iTunes.
Oh, yes, you can. You can also give us a upvote there.
An upvote, a written review helps us move up the rankings.
Absolutely.
Gets us found easier in the search engine optimization stuff that I don't know anything about.
Yeah, me either. All right, so we're a half hour in. We probably should talk about the main topic, and we will absolutely get complaints about that because we had one last week. Like, you guys went 7 minutes before you talked about the main topic. Like, so let's get started because we're 30 deep at this point.
No, we're like 50. We're like 20 because we talked for 25 minutes.
No, that's fine because
it's in the title.
Honestly, if it was an issue with someone, feel free to let us know. But we discussed what people were coming back to us from other episodes.
And maybe you know what? Maybe in the future I will try to make a note when the main topic starts so someone can jump ahead if they don't want to listen to me ramble on for however long I ramble on.
We all rambled.
Right, yeah.
To be quite honest, I could actually be proactive, and when I edit this weekend, I could write down main topic starts at X minutes, and so when I go on Monday to post it to Patreon, I can just edit the YouTube comments to be like main topic at
That's actually not
19 minutes, 20 seconds or whatever it's
Look at us
being.
problem solving. All right, main topic, etiquette and EDH. This is a topic inspired by something that happened to Max fairly recently, and we'll start with this one. This is a thing you should watch in Commander. Max.
Okay.
Take it away.
A couple weeks ago, I was playing at the shop on our normal EDH night.
Yep.
I was playing my Dragon Lord Jamoka Flying Tribal deck. I was playing against 2 new players to the shop that, so we'll go, player 1 to my right was a friend of ours. He's been playing with us for a few years. I was player 2. Player 3 and 4 were the newer players to the shop. Didn't really recognize them. I think I played 1 game with player 4 before. So I kind of got off to a really quick start in Jamoka. I ended up locking it down to where I had privileged position, true conviction out on the field, and Jamoka had Umezawa's Jite on her with 2 counters already on the Jite.
So you were going to wreck somebody's night.
Well, and the player 4 was playing the Scorpion God, which had a lot of -1 counters, and he had some discard stuff. So I was sitting there and I was doing the math in my head, and he had it. The way I had it planned out was I was going to swing at him, and before damage, I was going to remove the counters off the Jite, before first strike damage, hit him for 9. And then then the counters go back on, and then before double strike damage hits, I was going to remove the counters again. That would have been just enough to put him at 22 commander damage. So I needed first strike damage to happen. And so he looks at me, and at what the only other creature I had on the battlefield was Linvala, Keeper of Silence, and he was playing a Scorpion God deck. So I went, I'm going to declare attack at you, player 4, and he said, well, in response, I'm going to scoop, because I can't do anything when you have a creature out that literally shuts my commander down.
Sure.
And I said, well, okay. And at that point, I'm like, well, okay, I don't gain my life off of Jamoka. I don't get more counters on the Jite. So and like player number 1, who knows me, kind of looked at me, and he almost said something along the lines of like, combat happens. He can scoop, but you get your triggers because this game needs to end, whatever. And I said, you know what? Nope, that's fine. You can scoop.
Sure, because you're not going to fight with somebody about that.
No, especially he's a newer person in the shop. Right. I really didn't want to have a negative interaction with someone, especially because we have a podcast. Like, correct. I don't want to be that guy like, F you, CMDR Central, because you made me not scoop, whatever.
We're not Canadians. We're not.
Right. Shout out to Brando. I hope you're doing fine after your mall incident. But so I let him scoop, and I'm like, okay, well, second main phase. And I just took the counters off the Jite anyways because I had a Rich Cards expertise. So I'm like, well, at least I get to draw 9.
Right, yeah.
And literally, like, the next turn, I won. Like, the player number 1 knew I had it in the bag, and player number 3 was like, okay, let's see what I draw. And he looks at his and I'm like, yeah, I got
But there's situations where that can cost you the game.
Right. There have been many times where someone does something along the lines of, like, I'm going to cast Armageddon and scoop because I already know I'm going to lose.
Well, and we'll mention that one here in a little bit,
right.
That kind of thing. But yeah, so the rule of thumb here I would have is scoop at sorcery speed. Like scoop when you can cast a sorcery, or when someone's going to kill everybody.
We had this blow up on Twitter, and there had to have been
it was a
dozen or more that literally said it should be scoop at sorcery speed.
So my question now to you guys would be kind of a corollary to that, scoop at sorcery speed. But what are your thoughts on the kind of final crackback when you're dying, meaning someone swinging at you for lethal or doing whatever, and you're like, okay, I'm going to die. In response to your damage getting through, however, I'm going to path to exile your Consecrated Sphinx. Even though it's not going to save me, I'm going to make you be in a bad position from here on out.
So I'll comment on this first. So, like, I had a privileged position out that entire game. I think it got bounced once by a Kess player 1. And that was the only way he could deal with privileged position. Mm-hmm. And he's like, I need that gone in order to deal with you at all.
Sure.
If player 4 would have somehow been able to remove privileged position
while dying,
I honestly probably would have been okay with it because I'm already so far ahead in this game.
Sure.
Where losing the thing that probably will let the Kesk player kill Jamoka is okay with me. I'm all for king making. Like, I'm okay with king making.
In that context, as you're going down?
Right. I'm not okay in the king making of, I know I'm going down, so I'm going to MLD or something.
Sure. Not spiteful, but like, so how about you, Chris? What are your thoughts on that?
I'm fine with it. You go down swinging.
Yeah.
So here's my opinion on this has changed recently. One of the things I used to think was, it was kind of like when you're in a national park, you leave it like you found it. I'm like, if I'm dying, I'm going to let the game play itself out the way you normally would. I'm going to leave it like I found it. But on a Command Zone episode recently, they were discussing this thing, the scoop at sorcery speed, and one of the things Josh Lee Kwai said was, it's no different than any other crackback. When I swing at you, I have to factor in, okay, I'm leaving my blockers open, I'm going to get cracked back. Well, if you kill somebody, it's the same thing. I have to factor in, if I'm going to kill this dude, is he going to swing back? Is he going to take out my best enchantment on his way down? And I hadn't really thought of it in that context. I'm like, yeah, that's something you do need to factor in, is are they going to crack back at me because I'm taking them out? So like in that context, I'm like, oh, no, that makes sense. I totally buy that. I'm on board.
I'm fine with it if it's towards the player who took you out.
And
now,
you're
if
not
you turn
to,
on the other people on the
Yes.
table, then it's a little like, why?
If you're treating it like a rattlesnake versus I'm trying to ruin the game because I died. Yeah.
I mean, in my scenario, if that player would have been like, hey, I know privileged position is keeping both of you from doing anything, I'll take that out.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, I totally agree with that. I would have done the same thing.
All right. What's next?
I wanted to talk about one called trash talking.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Now, in my opinion,
Your mama's so fat. She
your mom is rated E for everyone.
That's fair.
I think that was a PG joke,
Is that
right?
No, I guess that one be all right.
So friendly banter is okay. You know, like you get that all the time. Now, when you're sitting there and you're bad mouthing someone's deck or how they built it, cards in it, etc., like that, that's not cool.
I agree with that completely. Now, bear in mind, a lot of these things we're talking about here, we're generally going to talk about what you're doing when you're playing with people that aren't your good friends.
Yep.
I'm going to talk trash to you two probably.
Oh, yeah, I do it.
Way different than I will with a complete stranger or even someone I kind of know. Like, there's people at the shop.
I played with Frank this week.
Yeah.
And I trash talked him so hard.
Yes, your friends who you have that kind of rapport with is a whole different deal. We're mostly talking about etiquette when you're playing with people that aren't people you play with, multiple times a week that are your good friends.
Now, what I mean by like friendly banter is even if you're playing with like a random group of people and someone's like, oh, I'm going to attack you. You look at me like, come at me, brah.
Right.
Like that kind of stuff, little
sure.
bits of trash talk pokes like that. That's fine. But when he attacks you and you just like go off on him in a rant, it's like,
I don't say a word if someone casts a cancel. Now, you guys, I might. But to another person, I do not. I'm like, nope, that's not my place.
I believe I've been in the shop and someone has played like cancel or manolith. I'm like, see that guy over there? Go show him that card and let him tell you how bad that card is. Chris, along that lines, like we've all kind of had experience with this type of thing. Years ago, there was someone that was like, hey, can I borrow a deck?
Oh, God, don't do it when you've borrowed someone's deck and then talk about how bad
literally,
it is.
like, they're in a pod with you, and they're like, why are you playing this card? Why are you playing this card?
Yeah.
Why are you playing this card? Like, I like, every now and then, like, I'll be, like, on the opposing side of someone, be like, hey, there's a better version of that card you just played. You know, is there a reason why you're running this version? And they explain, well, no, I just didn't know about the better version.
Or if they ask you specifically, hey, you have any advice for me or something, that's a whole different deal.
That's a whole different deal. But when you borrow someone's deck and then they sit there in the game you're playing with them and going like, this card is crap. This card's crap. Why are you running this card? Why are you running this? It's like, no offense. I just lent you my deck that I think is really good or is personable to me or whatever. Don't go and trash it. Like, at that point, I was like, just give me my deck back. Get out of the game. I don't want you touching my cards.
Right. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I have to laugh because I was reading the comments on Facebook earlier and about loaning out a deck. And when the guy's like, I literally watched the guy put him in his mouth. And I was like, what?
Well, I will then skip. I will go to that one then, which popped up on the Facebook thing, which came from Peter Norton, who suggested ask before touching people's cards. And I know this is a huge peeve of Max's in particular.
Oh, yeah.
If someone plays a card, please don't just grab it to see what it is. At least say, hey, man, do you mind if I take a look?
Yep.
And we had multiple people on the Facebook group like echo that one and say, yes, please ask.
This is really, really hard thing for me to not do.
Yes.
And is to ask first, because when you're playing competitive, it's just out there. You just grab the card, you look at it, because you're in a time frame. You're in a time crunch.
For sure.
You don't waste the time. And no one ever complains about it because you're very gentle with it. You don't, pick it up, bend it in half or anything like that and hand it back. But in Commander, I understand because a lot of these cards are expensive, foils, that kind of stuff. So,
and you're reaching across the table because you're in a weird configuration or something.
And end up knocking over someone's deck.
And there's a lot more of it because you're facing three players and you're seeing a lot more. Like in Modern, most of the cards you're going to see.
Yes.
In Commander, you could see anything. So there's a lot of stuff you maybe haven't seen before. There's a lot more of that.
Yeah.
That's a good one, is ask people before you touch their cards for sure.
You said something interesting right there, Chris, about how in competitive play, you're on a time frame.
Yep.
And maybe it's not as strict in EDH, but we are on a collective time frame in the sense that we don't want to sit here for 2.5 hours playing EDH in a 4-player pod. Like,
I have no problem with
Well,
it.
I know you don't, and neither. To be quite honest, I don't think any of us do if it's early in the night,
or if it's a good game.
or if it's a good game. But like,
Or you're playing Plane Chase.
oh, that's so much fun. But like, I do get what you're saying. Like in competitive, it's like you just know, you either don't know what that card does or you know what that card does. And in EDH, we're looking at 20,000 cards.
Yeah. But
at the same time, it's not that hard to just be like, point at the card and be like, hey, may I look at that? Because I've never seen that before. Dana said it, to be quite honest, this is one of the top 5 things that tilts me instantly. If I play a card, and granted, yes, a lot of my decks are foiled out, and I get the foil versions are like the Amonkhet Invocation versions are a little different, but if I say Force of Will, 90% of the player base knows what Force of Will is. And it's not that other TCG game.
Right.
You cut me off before I could say it.
I saw it in your eye. As long as you just say, hey, can I please read that card? Yes.
That's probably good enough.
I've also gotten in the habit, and I've picked this up from Dana and other podcasters around the MTG community. Like, if I know I'm playing with new players in the pod or new players in my shop, I will play that card and I will flip it reverse, and I will just flip it that way and be like, here you go, read the card. That's my way of openly saying, go ahead and touch my card and read my card.
Because oftentimes you can tell, you play someone's like, you can see them giving the look, and I just try to turn around and slide it over to them. Just watch for that. That can solve a lot of problems as well.
And it also helps, and will probably relate to another comment we got on Facebook, like, announce what you're doing. Like, if you play a card that has a block of text for its rules text or whatever, just say, hey, this card does X, Y, Z.
Well, there's a couple levels. Number one, announce what the card is if it's something that's obscure. But number two, this also isn't a competitive game where you're playing face-to-face. This is a 4-player game, and maybe the guy who went after you took a 8-minute turn, so everyone got distracted looking at the ceiling or something, and the person who's diagonal from you, maybe you're at a weird big table and you can't see their cards or something. If you're playing something impactful, like if you're playing a Maze of Ith, particularly if the game is one of those ones where it's gotten kind of sloggy, I would say just mention it. Say, hey, I'm playing a Maze of Ith. That way no one can be annoyed because they missed it, because it took them 15 minutes to get back to their turn because a bunch of stuff was happening. The polite thing to do, particularly if you're playing in a casual game with people you don't know, if you don't need to announce every island or anything, but like if you're playing a Core Haven or something that's going to change what people will do, I think it's polite to just mention what you're doing. Hey, I'm playing Heuristic Studies, so you guys that are maybe distracted by whatever's going on because this turn around the table is taking so long, mention what it is. You don't need to say that you played a Scrib Sprites, but you probably should mention, hey, I just played this card. I just played Aura of Silence. And I can pop any of your artifacts or enchantments at any point in time, and everything you do moving forward is going to cost 2 more. Just so you guys know, that's the thing that just happened. So exactly. I agree with that. I think there's a couple layers there with announcing what you play that makes a big difference. Are there any particular cards that you guys think are important to announce? I mentioned like Maze of Ith. I like to do Maze of Ith particularly, or Core Haven, but are there any ones that jump out for you that you yourself like to point out that you just did?
Lands specifically that do more than just tap for mana. Maze of Ith.
Urborg is one I like to mention because that affects everybody too.
Yep,
so when I play an Urborg, I say, by the way, y'all have swamps. I just played an Urborg.
I've gotten to the point where like haste enabling lands, I've done that. Like Hall of the Bandit Lord, Flamekin Village. Like, just so you know, next turn I'm going to give my commander haste. Like those type of things. Things that will drastically change what people think are going to be a typical next turn.
Now, if I'm playing 1v1 or something, I wouldn't. But like in a friendly game with people, particularly if I don't know them that well, yes.
This is where the casual of
Correct.
EDH comes into play big time. Like, cool, I played a Llanowar Elves. Everybody should know what Llanowar Elves is. And if they don't, well, Chris will teach you.
Tom
Kill it on
Menard.
site.
Tom Menard in Facebook added a caveat here that's especially important because some people do a lot of stuff in their turn. They're like moving lands around and they're rearranging cards and they're like just fidgety. And particularly if you're a fidgety person, announce what you're doing, because if the person particularly if it's like a 5-player game, or even if they're just across from you and you're doing a ton of stuff, it can be really easy to miss what that person's doing if you're like mumbling and shuffling your cards around and flicking while you rearrange your lands. Just say, make sure no one misses something, or you're not giving the appearance that you're cheating. Like, don't even give the appearance. Even if you're, obviously we're going to assume you're not, but like, don't put yourself in that position. Say, hey, I just cast this. I moved my lands around. The ideal thing is to minimize doing the fidgeting, but like, if that's the way what you do, just try to let everyone know what it is you're doing with your lands and mana and cards.
To comment on that, like this also plays back to the fact that, and we've talked about this before, plan your turns out ahead of time.
Yeah.
Like if you're wait, like you'll see me. Shut up, Chris. He's sitting here shaking his head like, no, I don't need to do that. I'll take all my time on my turn. It's not a timed format. I got more than 15 minutes.
Watch me play Commander. How fast I actually
you
play
do.
that
You
turn.
do play fast.
Like I'll spend my turns like. Maybe if I'm playing Jamocha, I'll leave two mana untapped because I have like a Swords and a Path or whatever, or maybe like a Diglammer. But like the tapped lands, you'll see me shuffling them and arranging them in the fact that I know I need these 4 for this creature next turn.
I do that too.
And these 5 for this enchantment next turn. But then I put them all back into one pile, knowing the top 4 are for this. Like I'm stacking the cards I'm going to play next turn.
Particularly
essentially,
if that person to your right is doing something, and you're like, I'm not giving away information because we're past that point. It's like their second main phase. I'm like, okay, I'm going to use this 3 mana for this 2 for this. Okay, what do I have left? Yeah. Minimize how long people are sitting. There's anything that saves time, I think, is a good etiquette thing to do. And again, maybe mention that I'm going to fetch, and I'm going to do fetch to save time. That doesn't hurt either.
No.
And we did a whole show on saving time at one point in time, but like that's also a good etiquette thing, is to just not waste anyone's time.
Yeah, most of the time I'll fetch immediately after I play the fetch land.
Because you're not in a competitive format.
Unless it is that I need to fetch for a shock land in order to do something in response.
Yeah.
Instead of it just coming into play tapped.
Well, talking about discussing things with groups and like clearly mentioning it, I mean, probably one of the first things you should mention in terms of etiquette is discuss the power level of the decks you're going to play. If you're playing with people that aren't familiar with what you're going to do, I think that the 2 things that at least I personally will mention to people that don't know me is I'm gonna tell them how fast my deck is first of all. Because those are 2 different things. I have decks that are powerful and not necessarily fast, and there's decks that are fast and maybe not necessarily that powerful, and those aren't always the same thing. Sometimes they are, but you should at least kind of make those 2 notes to somebody, particularly if you don't know them. Hey, this deck's going to come out the gate really quick, just so you know. Like, if I was playing my Edric deck with somebody, I would tell them this is a strong deck, and it's going to be fast. But if I'm playing my Sphinx deck, I'm just going to like, there's a bunch of strong cards in here, just so you know. But I'm not going to win before turn 10 in any situation ever. So be prepared that I might mana drain you, but you're going to have ample time to deal with this deck.
I agree with that mentality of, and I've never thought about it from the fact of power level versus speed. I never really have. But that makes me think about Commander Cookout. When they do their deck techs every week, they do an optimal turn. Like, when is this deck really gonna? When is the turn where you're either?
What's the money turn?
If they don't stop you on this turn, you're gonna win either that turn or the next turn. And I think that's kind of what you're saying is, you have decks where the optimal turn is like Edric's optimal turn is 3 or 4,
right? Where
Isperia optimal turn is
12. Right? Yeah.
I guess I really need to start looking at my decks that way, where like. I think I commented to you, like, more consistently since I've tuned Jamocha. Jamocha comes out on turn 3 about 45% of the time. If not, it's out on turn 4, consistently. Like, that's a big thing when you have a commander that doesn't let you cast spells on my turn and it can't be countered.
Right.
Like, that's something I should be telling these new players, like, hey, you need to be able to prepare on turn 4 that I'm going to drop my commander.
Sure. Yeah.
Done.
Yes. Yeah.
Or else I might as well just rip Tajik out of the box and deal with Boros problems all night long. Yeah.
Any other discussion stuff, since we're talking about power level? Any other things that you like to mention to people ahead of time that you guys think are big ones?
So I'm torn on this because, like, a part of me says, like, I think of my Brago deck, and I know there are definitely hard locks, if not infinite combos in that deck. And I think it depends on how much of your hand you want to show before the game even starts. Like, in a casual 4-player pod, if I'm playing with 3 new players to the shop, I'm going to be like, hey, I'm going to play my Brago deck. It is extremely tricky. There's a lot of interaction on my own side.
And I can lock you out of the game
but
at some point.
I could eventually lock this game down to where you guys can't do anything every turn you play. shame on me. I just shouldn't play that deck against 3 new people. But like, how much do you really want to tip your hat to be like, hey, I can Sun Titan strip mine lock this game. I can Archaeomancer, Rift Lock, Render Silent, any instant essentially lock this game. Like, how much do you really want to tell? Or do you want to be that guy that's like, you know what? You learn by losing and rub some dirt in the wound and move on.
I have I think there's a couple things I would mention, and I'm not going to get mad if somebody doesn't, but like if I was playing these decks, if I had a Chaos deck, if I had a Hugs deck, if I had a Stacks deck, and I'm talking like a hardcore one, not like I happen to have a Grave Pact.
You're talking like Winter or Grave Pact.
If you have a dedicated if you had a dedicated Chaos deck, a dedicated Hugs deck, dedicated Stacks or Tax, a dedicated Mass Land Destruction deck, or even probably any Mass Land Destruction, or heavy counterspell. If you're playing like Baral 22 counterspells or Talran 20 counterspells, those are things I would mention to people ahead of time, particularly if you don't know them, because you don't want to throw 20 counterspell Baral at a dude who then unveils his Arabo deck. Like, that's bad. Because it's like, oh, why did I not do that? But no, like, you're going to ruin that dude's night. So you should at least mention that, and maybe the person will say, oh, cool, I want to see that happen. Because some people are, that is a thing. People like want to see cool tricks. Maybe someone's going to say that, but I think you should at least, if you're playing something that's potentially going to cause a terrible game state for somebody, you should give them a heads up.
Yeah, I would agree with that to a point. And people playing EDH kind of know those terms. They know what stacks are. They know what hard counter control is. So like, you aren't giving your whole strategy away. You're just going to say like, hey, I'm playing a pure stacks deck. Okay, I kind of know, even as an experienced EDH player, I know what to expect. As a somewhat new EDH player, you should kind of know what to expect. You've heard of Grave Pact, you've heard of Dictator Erebos. As a brand new EDH player, good luck. Make sure all your buckles are buckled.
I would also throw Infect in there. If you have a dedicated Infect deck, you should mention it to people that you don't know.
Right.
I can't do it.
You can't do it?
Nope.
That's the competitive edge in you, though.
Right. It is. Yeah.
Face down commander, I will not reveal it until we start the game. Once mulligans are completed, I'll flip it face up, and it is what it is.
But to be honest, though, like when you say that, but I've seen you play with like brand new players. You are much more teddy bear like with like people you don't know who are.
I'll still play the annoying
You're
decks.
not supposed to say that.
No, I'll play the annoying decks, but
you'll pull punches.
Yes.
Okay.
Really, really bad.
He'll forget the Mogus
and that's
triggers,
the same thing. But that's so instead you're just going to turn your tax deck or whatever into not that. You're just going to not play it that way, and that's probably going to accomplish roughly the same thing. The other one I would also say slightly is if you are playing like a deck with a commander designed to do a really narrow thing that'll win the game. Like if you're playing Micaeus against a new player, you should point out what that's going to do. I'm going to get Triskelion out and win the game. Or if you're playing, I'm trying to think of what's another command zone combo that's an easy one. The Kiki-Jiki. If you're playing like Kiki-Jiki combo deck and you're playing it with a don't know, you should probably mention, by the way, my commander is a combo piece and there's a pretty good chance I'm going to find that very quickly and just win the game. That's another one I would maybe mention particularly against new players. If I see Kiki, I know what's going down. But if you're a newer player, that's not you're going to read that card and go, oh, well, it makes a copy. Cool. You're not going to know what that means.
That's what scooping a sorcerer speed does. You just go ham with your Kiki-Jiki combo, show them everything, so they're all like, oh, that's cool, and then you're just like, keep playing, guys.
Sure, and walk away from it.
And, you know, that's the complete opposite of scooping at sorcery speed that we really didn't talk about earlier. Is if I'm the guy putting the infinite combo on the table, or the strip mine lock, or the Kiki-Jiki lock, I should be responsible enough to say like, hey guys, I don't want to ruin your game. I know that I can literally destroy every one of your lands infinitely the rest of the game with Sun Titan and Brago and whatever. I'm going to scoop, and you guys keep playing. Or we can all collectively agree, like, okay, let's just scoop and play a new game. Like, if that's turn 5 when I pull that off, which that tends to happen, I'm the guy that says, you guys keep playing. It's turn 5. You guys have barely are... I'll just walk away.
And then they have the chance to say, no, we're cool. Let's just play a new one.
Right.
Or they can keep playing. It's up to them. But like you're giving them the option. I agree. That's good etiquette. The one other thing I would say talking about ahead of time is if you're using non-traditional cards, meaning if you're using banned, because some people play with banned cards. Like my buddies let me play with Tinker or something. You should mention that to strangers that there's a Tinker in this deck. Or if you're using uncards.
I want to play Biorhythm.
Right, yeah. if you're using non-official commanders like the Nephilim, some people play Nephilim, or like they'll be using a planeswalker because their buddies let them play with, and not like one of the not can be a planeswalkers. I would also say proxies. If you've got a proxy, even
We've
if you're
talked
like,
about this.
yeah, but like at least give your
Going
play
down a
group the
slippery
option.
slope.
It is. No, it is. But I would still give them the heads up, because some people are going to take issue with that, and you don't want them to take issue with it mid-game. And it's also going to depend, hey, I've got a proxy of, Stomping Grounds in the stack that I penciled on the Sharpie onto an island. No one's going to care. But if you've got a proxy Time Twister, someone may care, and you should give them a chance to care. So that's one. I would at least mention that to people. I think it's just good manners to do so before you play the
some
game.
uncards?
No.
Why? There's one that I really want to play.
Which one?
It's the one where you have like 30 seconds to run around the room and get as many high fives as you can, and you gain that much life.
I am not fast.
I would play that. I just get up and I would take off.
Just run.
See how many chairs I trip over as I'm running.
I legitimately would stick my leg out and watch you fall, and then I would jump on you and be like, you're not getting any life.
Be like, come to me, my people.
If you somehow get up with me on your back and I get high fives too, do I get life too?
I'm not sure.
Is
Is that assist? We'll say assist is on there.
In two-headed giant. You would.
Assist. Piggyback someone around the room.
This next one had a bunch of people on Facebook that agreed. The first one that posted it was Bryson Summers, but he said minimize the amount of do-overs and take-backs and how long you go back to do them. So I think everyone does it a little bit, Commander, because, again, I think when you're playing with 4 players, there's a whole lot more going on. It's a lot easier to get distracted. It's a lot easier for someone to just say skip through phases. So there's going to be some degree of that where someone's like, draw, play this, pass a turn. And someone's like, whoa, no, I need to do something on your end step or whatever. So what would be an example from both you guys of an acceptable do-over or rewind or take-back versus an unacceptable one? I'm curious what your thresholds are.
I know Chris's answer, and it's going to be nothing because he plays competitive. He'll just call a judge on you.
But again, he says that, but like I've seen him.
I have a story for you guys.
All right.
So GP Milwaukee, like the casual player in me came out playing against a guy. I played a Vishano Pyromancer, which when it enters the battlefield deals 2 damage to player Planeswalker.
Okay.
The guy had a Tecatli Honor Guard out in play, which says that creatures entering the battlefield don't cause triggers to activate. Well, he had taken the 2, went to his turn, drew a card, noticed that, and he's like, oh, well, that wouldn't have activated. I'm like, okay, yeah, you can just have the 2 life back. So I'm going to call a judge. I'm like, go for it. Judge comes over. He's like, you drew for turn? He's like, yep. He's like, we won't rewind this. You took the 2 life. You're stuck at what you're at. And I looked at him right as soon as he walked away. I'm like, that was a bad call for you. I'm like, you should have just taken the life when I was going to give it to you.
Right. So I think there are certain things I've gotten better at the taking back things. Like that has been something I've been focusing on the last year of, hey, and the biggest thing for me is I tapped my mana wrong. I used to always screw up how I tap my mana in my decks.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh crap, I tapped more white than blue.
I meant to only tap one.
But,
sure.
But I've really been hard on myself. Like, know what? You screwed up. You can no longer cast that counter spell or that path next turn because you tapped the wrong lands. I think it also flexes on how new the player is and whatnot. But if we're talking about like us 3 are like the experienced players in the shop, there are certain things you can take back. Like, oh, like I shouldn't get that ETB trigger because of whatever card is preventing that. Yeah, you can rewind that ETB trigger. Oh, I drew a card off that. Cool, just put it back, shuffle your library. We'll call that good. If you're playing with new players, I think you can be a little more lax because you want to teach them the game. You don't want to scare them off. Be like, nope, you broke the rule. You don't get to do that.
Well, I agree. But I'm harder on myself with it than other people. And an example that happened to me this week is I was playing my Arvad deck, and I had Reconnaissance out, and I attacked somebody, and I had Timna, so that was part of the reason I was just like, I'm hitting everybody so I can draw cards. And I know if you block, I'm just going to recon them back in. But my Timna then hit somebody, and I think 2 turns in a row, I forgot to recon Timna at the end of combat to essentially give her vigilance. And I realized as soon as I moved to my second main phase and drew my cards off Timna, I'm like, I didn't untap her. But I'm like, no, I missed it. It's only been like 6 seconds literally since it happened. But I'm like, you know what? That's for me. But if somebody else said, oh, I didn't untap my Timna at the end of combat, I'd have been like, yeah, whatever. That's fine. I get it. I would have let it slide. But for me, I didn't. Now, would you let it slide, or does it depend?
Depends on who I'm playing.
Depends on the
against,
person.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. I mean,
If they're
and we
like new
wouldn't have
faces,
well,
I'd
see,
be like,
you might not have given it to me, but I wouldn't have asked. So why is it being
Yeah.
then not playing in the first place?
like if it's a new face, usually my response is, "Yep, go for it," but you need to watch that for next time.
yeah.
Something to maybe get into their head. Like I don't want to consider it like a threat or something, but something where they're like, "Oh, yep, I'll try to remember."
I'll get it next time.
Yep.
Even though this is casual, you still got to pay attention to how the game flows, type of thing.
And there are some ones that I don't even consider a do-over. Like, technically you should draw your Phyrexian Arena card. Was at the start of your upkeep.
You have to.
Yeah, see,
But like in Commander, most people just go untap, upkeep, draw two.
Yep.
And in sometimes you draw the one early but like for the most part, I don't care if somebody does that.
Yep.
But technically that's wrong. But like it's just a nice shortcut too. But what you don't do is say, "Oh man, I didn't draw any heuristic study cards for the last 4 turns. I got 27 coming." Like, no, you don't. You missed a bunch of them. Right? Yeah. So anyway, like I think we would all say little things are fine, but like if you've missed your Phyrexian Arena, if not only have you waited, like, "Oh man, I've had Phyrexian Arena out for 4 turns and I haven't drawn any cards," like, well then you just don't get. Even if you're a new player, like that's 4 turns ago, dude. You just don't get those cards.
When I was playing this last Tuesday, I had 2 that I missed that I didn't even bring it up to people that I missed them because I knew that I missed them myself. With Glissa, a creature died and I didn't get an artifact back, and I was like, okay, missed that one. Then on my next turn, I drew with Sylvan Library out and put that card right in my hand. I'm like, oh, come on, what are you doing?
And that deck is challenging to pay attention to the triggers when you know it really well. You don't even know it that well, and there's a lot going on there. So minimize the amount of stuff you do there. I think that's good for everybody involved. Any other ones you guys want to talk about here?
Chris, you said you had a bunch that weren't from Dana's notes.
Constantly complaining.
Well, I had a bad day at work and my knees hurt and I got a headache. And
one note I have is just watch the salt, whether you had a bad day or bad play. Yeah, for sure. Like, just try to be a fun person to be around.
My exact wording on this is, this game is meant to have a winner. There are no participation trophies here.
Sure.
I 100% agree with that.
Now there's ways you can handle it because there's been those games where like someone kills you and you're like, "Oh man, I thought I was going to be able to pull it out, but I didn't." Like, there's ways you can say that, or like, one more turn, I might have been able to pull it off, but good game. But you can
Why do you keep attacking me?
Right.
I don't understand it. What are you doing? This guy has nothing on the field. Why aren't you attacking him? Why are you blowing up my Gitrog monster repeatedly?
And actually, I tend to do the opposite thing when someone is attacking me or they kill me. I almost always say, "Yeah, that was the right play. Good call. I was the person you should have taken out there." I tend to go almost reassure people when they do something that it was the good call. Max does not do that. I do that because I want someone.
I have no problem losing a game. The problem I get, and where I get a little salty, is when I try to explain to people that I wasn't the problem on the table and they end up losing to that problem.
I also struggle with that when I see someone do like a real bad threat assessment. That's really tricky to thread that needle and not be a jerk about, because that's one of the things that's really frustrating. You're like, "Why did you just kill my solemn simulation?" Like whatever, like some trash. Like,
not to draw a card off of it,
right,
though.
I guess. But that's a terrible example. But like, why did you kill my whatever when that's over there?
Yeah.
And maybe they do have a reason for it, but maybe they don't too. But like, that's a tough one to not be salty about. But that's a good one to watch too, to not do that.
I don't have much to say on this watch the salt topic because I used to be a really salty player. I would get one bad game and it would tilt me the rest of the night. And I used to be that player, like, you killed me in game 1, I'm going to kill you in every game I'm playing with you. And now I've kind of gotten a lot better, and there's been nights where I just want to say, I'm not coming tonight because I had a really bad day at work.
Yes, that does happen.
I know it's going to impact how I treat the fellow players at the shop, so I don't want to deal with that drama. And Chris is waving me off, but
you're also you're less temperamental than Max about stuff too.
Right.
Like, you don't let it, whereas it does affect Max.
Right.
See, that's when you walk into the store, you look and you see, you're like, that guy, I don't like him. I'm going to play with him.
Or you just avoid the people.
Right.
There are those games, actually, those days when you've came in and you're like, I just want to play with you and somebody else because I can tell you had a rough, and you just want to play with people that you know and you don't want to deal with it. And
right.
But at least you recognize it. I have one more I'm going to mention here. This came up a few weeks ago on Twitter. Someone asked, "Why do people get so salty when I run foreign language cards?" And I responded to them, but I'm going to mention right here because I don't know what they are. Now, and I would say this extends to maybe even full art cards because we're getting a full art Lightning Bolt. Lightning Bolt's super easy because it's Lightning Bolt.
That at least says Lightning Bolt on it in English.
Right, that's true. It does. I think it heals you for 3 and prevents 3 damage to a creature. Or does it give a creature +3/+3? One of the
That'd
one
be
of the
really
two.
good, actually.
One of those two. Yeah, one of those two. So
in red. It's in red too.
No, that's why I'm like, ooh, I want that card.
I've got
It
two.
saves your Zergo.
I have a couple of good examples here of things that literally happen in games. The first was a couple of years back. Someone had the full art player reward Spell Crumple, and they didn't know if the spell you countered went to the top or the bottom. Yeah, and I was like, well, you've got the full art one in your deck. You should know what it does. You shouldn't like.
That's why I don't run
have
these cards.
to tell me what it does. And it also happened with a Cryptic Command where the person had the full art Cryptic and didn't remember what all 4 modes were.
Whoa.
And if it's in your deck, you should know what it is. And I don't know off the top of my head, like, okay, you can draw 2, you can...
Nope.
You can't even? Okay, well, there we
tap
go.
down all opponent's creatures.
You can't pick the same mode twice.
You draw a card.
Counter target spell.
Counter.
Bounce target permanent. Tap all creatures target player controls. Draw a card.
Okay.
Yep.
So, but I wasn't playing it, so I don't have to know. But like, if you're playing it, you should have that. You should know that. And the other example, I remember someone played the Japanese Chandra from the Chandra versus Jace duel deck.
Oh, I have one of those. It's such a.
Is that the one that wheels?
Well, that's the mystery, isn't it? Because I didn't know. And at this point, there's 9 different Chandras. Don't ask me to remember what your anime Chandra does. You should know, number one, know, and be able to tell me every time I ask you, what's her +1 again? Because I don't speak Japanese. So you should know what you shouldn't say, oh, I think it's this. You should know what it is.
Right.
If you're playing foreign language cards, the polite thing to do is number one, know them, and number two, be able to answer that at will. Ideally, maybe even have it bookmarked on your phone so you can just bring up, here's the Chandra, and lay it down so someone knows what it is.
Yep. I actually had a player on my team that I play with had a whole bunch of foreign cards he's playing against a guy in Modern. And he kept asking the guy, what does this card do? What does this card do? And the guy's like, we can call a judge for Oracle text on it. So he called the judge, had to call the judge again. So the judge sat there and watched after that. And the guy played again, and he asked him what that card did, and he looks at the judge, and the guy's like, just tell him what the card does.
Right, yeah.
Like, just snapped on the guy. And he's like, whoa. He's just like, no, you're playing all foreign cards. You need to be able to explain what your cards do.
You're wasting the judge's time, especially in a small event at a local game store where there's probably one judge versus a GP or an SCG event where there's hundreds of judges. Like, you're wasting...
that's still wasting a judge's time because they have to cover X amount of ground.
Right.
And I'm not going to refuse to play against someone with that, but I'm also not going to do extra work. You need to be prepared. If you're going to do that, don't put it on me then to deal with you running anime Chandra.
Yep.
Just know what the card does and be willing to answer it. And then prepare for me to forget in 40 seconds because there's a bunch of Chandras and I'm going to forget that you just told me, was that her +1 or her -1 that did that or whatever. Or I can't read what the number, I don't remember if they're English numbers or what
they are. I believe
I think
the numbers are printed in English, but everything else is in Japanese.
Yeah, for Modern, I play, one of my decks I play is Scred. And I run all foreign Cost of the Hammers in there.
Okay.
I have one foil from the vault, I think it is, or whatever
dual
it
deck.
was, the dual deck, but it's curled, which you don't want to play in competitive Magic because it's a marked card.
Yep.
So I have it in a separate sleeve inside my deck box. So if I play it, the guy asks, I'll tell him all modes that go. Yeah. He's like, are you sure? I'm like, I'll pull it out and I'll show it to him.
Yep.
And then if I get deck checked, then I have to explain to a judge why I have an extra one in the deck. But I'm like, it's in a separate sleeve. It's because all the other ones are foreign, and people argue with me when I tell them what modes are.
You know, along the lines of foreign cards, though, this can also apply to full art altars or complete art altars. Because I know at GP Vegas this year, Ryan from Commander Cookout Podcast, he has a completely 100% altered Animar deck. Every single card,
every one in the deck
is altered to the point where it's either full art or there's no text. And he showed it to the judge, the head judge of the Commander tournament. He said, "I'm really sorry, I can't let you play this because I know people are going to call me every 5 minutes."
Constantly.
Yep.
And Ryan's like, you know what? I 100%, I'm okay with that. You know, he was side table. He's like, God, F them. Like, but he's like, you know what?
He also wasn't serious.
I get it because then he just busted out a different deck. But like, if you have and that's like Dana said, those full art WPN cards, I don't run any of them because I don't remember what half the cards that are in English do in my deck, let alone.
Right.
I think it was the last 1v1 tournament we went to. I played that combo blue deck.
Yep.
And there is a full art textless Tidings in there.
Oh.
Which is 5 mana draw. 5 mana draw 4.
Yep.
And I told him that. I'm like, draw 4 cards. And he's like, no. I'm like, yeah. He's like, no. I'm like, Oracle text it. I'm like, it is draw 4 cards for 5 mana. Looks it up. He's like, oh, I didn't know that card existed. I'm like, yeah.
So I think it also extends to that. So if you're playing with alters, and I fully support the alter,
absolutely,
the card alter community. I mean, Ryan from CCO, Rafael Garcia, our patron supporter and Slack participant. Like, there are tons of people out there that do card alters for extremely reasonable prices that you can be like, hey, I want to commission this for you. I mean, but be prepared to know that you need to know what that card does more than you know your social security number, essentially, because someone's going to ask, what does that card do? And if you don't know, you're done.
Yeah. I am in agreement there. Any more ones we got here, guys? Chris, you have any more? I have 2 more that came through from people on Facebook. One was from Seth Dubois, who said, if you have a win in hand, don't prolong the game, just end it.
But
and I think the exception to that I responded to him is, like, sometimes when you're playing against new players, like real, like legit, like I just bought a pre-con players, that's different. But I think he means don't toy with people, just win the game. I agree with that.
I tend to agree with that. Like, if you're in a position where you think, if you're player number 4 and you think player number 3 is going to do something to screw up that plan or do something to make your plan better.
I think that's different.
But yeah, if you, like, if I know I'm going to strip mine lock everybody, I'm just going to do that and win.
I can kill you guys at any point in time and I can stop whatever you do, but I'm going to make you dance for me. Like, don't do that.
I did that once in a game of Phase 10.
Oh, I don't even want to talk about Phase 10 with you.
Phase 10, and I let 2 other people go lay down their phases. If you play your 10th phase, you automatically win. I looked over at the guy next to me. I showed him my hand because I just kept drawing and discarding. He's like, oh, just play it. I'm like, no, this is too much fun.
We had one more suggestion, too, that came through is be careful with food and drink when you're playing Commander, which I thought seemed obvious, but I'm like, no, I've seen stuff spilled on tables before.
I've seen it spilt on your cards before.
Yeah. Now, I double sleeve, and it was fine. And actually, the guy who did it was a good guy. He was totally terrible, but
he bumped the table, and I think he moved faster than you did to start grabbing cards and getting them out of the way.
But that is a legit thing. You just and so many of these are kind of the same thing. Just be courteous to who you're playing with, and that will solve 95% of the problems.
Most of the time I put any drink, even I always use bottles with covers. They still go on the floor.
If you can put them on the floor, yes. That's the last of them I have, although there's probably more that I didn't think of or that will come through on Facebook or Twitter in the near future. But anything else from either of you two?
That's all I can really think of. Worst case, we do a second one of these in 6 months.
For sure.
Shower.
Yes. B.O.
Yeah.
Do your best.
That's just store etiquette in general.
That's just life etiquette in general. But yes, I'm on board with that one. All right. We will be back next week. Until then, I am Dana.
I'm Max.
And I'm Chris.